And here we are on Longbox Punk with another live interview. This time it's with my pal David. David, how are you? Thanks for hanging out with me on a Monday evening.
I'm great. Mondays are awesome because you don't have to stress about Sunday being the day before Monday anymore. It's
Right,
done.
right. We're already through the
Yeah,
first day. So it's
yeah,
we've got that behind us. Everything's smooth sailing from here on out.
absolutely, absolutely. That's how I feel about it.
Excellent. Well, I like I said, I appreciate you coming on, hanging out with me, talking comics, talking punk, talking DIY, talking music. We're going to get into that as well. Get into the community of indie comics, a lot of fun stuff that we're going to be getting into, and so I'm excited to get there. So instead of talking about what we're going to talk about, let's talk about it. Tell me about you, about your experience with comics, and how you ended up doing this full time.
A little bit about me. I'm an art nerd from day one. I've been drawing Ninja Turtles since I was a little kid. No one could draw them better than me because I could do one foot this way and one foot that way.
Ooh,
It
yeah.
was like people couldn't touch it back in like second grade. From there, I moved on to like kind of smut peddling comic books to people at school who didn't, their parents wouldn't let them go to the comic shop. My parents didn't even know where I was, so I would go there and I'd buy like extra copies of Spawn, and I'm selling them for a markup at school.
Yeah,
And
you
then
were.
from there, I ended up going to art school. I got a degree in printmaking. Um, that was the fine art part of me, but I was just all of the prints that I was making were of like Weapon X ripping people's throats out and Cyclops like blasting through, like castle doors and things. So, uh, yeah, I should have just been making comic books instead of messing around with all that high art shenanigans. Um,
Yeah.
Fast forward a little bit, and I released a comic called Yuriko back in 2002, like right post pandemic, like right when it was kind of tapering off, about a vampire. And I thought, I don't know if what to do with this. I don't know, so I just threw it under the bus because I was like, I didn't want, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. And that one went really well, and I just kind of kept going from there. And now I've got a whole bunch of books under my belt, and I'm doing it pretty much full time. I've got scripts all over my table over here from other people that want me to draw. So
That's
it's
awesome.
exciting.
So do
Yeah.
you, speaking of the script part, have you done, like with Yuriko, did you write that as well as do the art? Like, was that a one
Yeah.
man show for you?
Yeah. Yuriko and Narita were both written by me and illustrated by me.
Okay.
And let me just say this to all the young kids out there, because I know your viewership is probably like the young teen punk rockers that are out, like the real cool kids that are underage and can't even get into shows because
Right. Right.
that's your vibe. No, but if you're just getting started in comics, honestly, I didn't even expect this to happen, but creating your own comic, you script it, you draw it, you produce it, you kickstart it, you make it, you get it to people, or even just getting it up on Global Comics. Uh,
Yeah.
that is the best advertisement to try and get work if someone else wants to hire you. Because if people
Mm,
were contacting me being like, "That was dope. Can you do that for me?" and I'm like, "Yes, I can. Pay me money out of money." And then
right.
and then then they did, and it was awesome. You know what I mean? But
So
yeah. So this.
is that how that started for you? Is like you just did Yuriko, got Nerda up, and then people started like, "Hey, this is badass. Like, what's up with that guy? Can you come do my thing?" Like, is that how that
Yeah.
happened for you?
Pretty much, and it's kind of snowballed to. I mean, I've got a guy that I've been talking with named Erwin Tang, who's a writer, and he can't draw at all. Like, I mean, we're talking stick figures here, which is fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
But he just sent me a script today for book one. He wants to do like a whole graphic novel that's like 100 plus pages, 150
Oh wow.
pages, and I'm like, all right, if I say yes to that, that's gonna be like what I do for however long. I mean, that's a lot of pages. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's how I got to this point is just putting myself out there, and then people liked what I did, and they said, "Okay, cool, can you do that for me?" They didn't know that I didn't know that you were supposed to hire somebody else to do the lettering and somebody else to do the inking and somebody else to do the colors and all that stuff. I was like, "Wow, I'll just do it."
Yeah.
But that
How
just turns
very
out that
DIY of you.
yes, right. It means I got more like tools in my tool belt. I got more things that I can throw up. Like if someone comes to me with a page that's basically done, they're like, "Can you color this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." You know what I mean? Because I know how to do it.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. I was this will tie in, I promise. I was at a Supernatural convention, like the TV show.
okay,
My wife is a big fan, and so they had a big convention in Columbus this past weekend. And one of the guys, I don't watch the show, so like I just went so that she had somebody to be socially awkward with. And one of the guys, I think his character's name is Crowley, was talking. Just like he started off being kind of a jerk, and I thought it was hysterical because I have a very black sense of humor. I'm very sarcastic. And there was a guy that went up and he was like, "Hey, I'm in film school. I'm about to graduate. Like, what do you?" And before he could even finish, the guy was like, "Make your thing. Like, make the movie. Follow your heart. Follow your passion. Make the movie. You're gonna learn more doing the thing than you are talking about the thing." And like I heard that and immediately just started typing on my phone. I was like, I have to remember this. And I've read it like 4 times since, because it's not just about movies. Like it's about everything. You just got to do it, And I think, like you said, with doing all of it yourself, yeah, there are people that specialize in letters and coloring and, flatting colors and digital art and writing and like doing all the things. But when you get the experience of doing it all yourself, that's all gained knowledge that then you have to use elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I was I was a bartender for like 15 years at this punk rock dive in Austin, and from there I decided like, man, I should get like a higher paying job. So I'm gonna jump ship and I'm gonna go to this like swanky restaurant. I know how to make a cocktail real well. I know how to talk to people real. It's fine. I can handle it. When I went to that job, they had me do. I was a bartender, but then part of my training was I also had to like run the food to the tables. I had to wait tables one night. I had to just like roll silverware one night. I had to work in the dish pit one night. So they had me moving around to all the different stations, and they said it was because I needed to learn what those things were like so that I could respect those people, and I didn't think that there was some kind of hierarchy.
Yeah.
And I honestly feel like in the comic world that sometimes there's some of the negativity that happens, especially in the indie community, comes from uh, people kind of feeling like there's some sort of hierarchy, like artists are more important, or writers are more important, or the publishing company is more important. When really it takes a village to raise an idiot, and every comic is stupid. So that's how I feel about it. It's like you should all have mutual respect for what each other do, because I have met people who are like amazing colorists that I could never attain, and amazing inkers that I could never attain. But if they sat down and tried to pencil a page, the whole layout of it is just like a total, it's like mind blowing to them. They're like, I don't know, man, like do that, and then I'll come in here and I know how to like make all the stuff look cool afterwards.
Right.
So, everybody has a skill set, and it's important to kind of respect all that stuff. And I feel like it's been a learning experience for me to be able to do all of those things and then realize what it takes to get it out the door and make it look good when you do those things yourself, So,
yeah. So do you like on Big Game Saga, we're tying that in, which is currently live on Kickstarter.
Yeah, what? Oh my God.
It's insane timing.
How well timed.
It's like we planned this. So with Big Game Saga, are you and I'll let you I know things, but not everybody knows things. Tell me about the book, about your experience working on it, and then about the Kickstarter itself. Like, how did this come together?
So the writer of Big Game Saga, Bill Poor, was a guy who saw Narita, which was my mermaid comic, and that was in like full color. And he was like, "Wow, this is really cool." He contacted me. That's the one right there. He contacted me and was like, "Hey, will you be interested in illustrating a comic for me?" He's a screenwriter. He also has a day job and all kinds of other stuff, but he's been trying to be a screenwriter and like send scripts to his manager to try and get them turned into television shows and that sort of thing. But you get a lot of rejection letters. You write some things, and some things make it in, some things don't. It's a hustle just like anything else. And he was like, he's like, I just want to make a comic. I've never made a comic before. You seem like the guy who can make it happen. So what would you want to draw? And I was like, well, I mean, I like ninjas. They're pretty cool. I've never
Yeah.
drawn ninjas in a professional comic book setting. And he was like, okay, what else do you like? I was like, well, I mean, laser guns are cool. And he's like, I know exactly. He's like, I have the script. He said, I sent it to my manager. My manager was like, what? No, that's not going to work. It's all over the place. There's no way. Hulu's going to say no. So he said it's been just chilling on his shelf forever, waiting to happen. And then when I was like, I like ninjas and laser guns, he was like, psh, I have a script for you. So he sent it to me.
Crazy.
And, yeah. Then so we started working on the pages, character designs, blah 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 blah, all that kind of stuff. And I sent him some pages, and he was like, these are awesome. When it skips time, though, as you noticed, because I sent you the comic.
Yep.
He had the bright idea of saying, "Hey, what when it goes back to feudal Japan? What if it's in black and white and it looks like a straight up manga comic book from the late '80s?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, that's a cool
such
idea."
It's such a cool, like, that's something I feel like that's more impactful in comics than it is in, say, like a movie, because movies do the flip with the coloring and stuff all the time. I don't feel like comics utilize that as a tool often enough because it's so well executed when it like reading it. I had seen the preview pages on the Kickstarter and I was like, oh, it's black and white. Awesome. Like manga feels super rad, like high bright colored cover. And when I read it, I was like, no, that's just a flat. And so it all kind of came together and I was like, man, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And it slowed me down reading it to just like even more appreciate, like, okay, if they're using this tool, like what else are they doing? And so it had me like on, like my antenna were up and I was on the move. Looking for all the stuff that was hidden in there. And it's a super fun read. Like the idea of the story, and I don't want to talk any details because I don't want to give stuff away that you're not prepared to give away. But the idea of this story itself was just like, where in the hell did this come from? And so the fact that like he was talking to you about what you like to draw, you threw out ninjas and laser guns and he was like, oh, all right, you mean like this? And just like that's insane.
It was crazy. I was like, well, this is a great idea. We also went back and forth about, because like a lot of times writers will give you something and they might not have in their mind's eye exactly what they want it to look like. They just they know ninjas are cool and they know whatever. So for example, that scene that's the preview up on the Kickstarter where the two kind of nasty samurai dudes come up and start messing with Saga's wife. He was like, in the script it's like samurais in full regalia showing up, blah 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 blah. Well, I did a little bit of research and I was like, well, that time period it was basically like kind of peacetime in Japan, so they wouldn't be wearing warrior garb. They wouldn't be coming from some battlefield. They would look more like this and this and this. So we were totally bouncing ideas off of each other of what things would look like. And once I presented them to him, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's makes so much more sense." And blah 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 blah. I don't know. I basically had free reign. I was like, "What does a time machine look like?"
Right.
I don't know. So I just kind of was flipping through Akira, like, okay, like giant hoses and steam and. Yep. What do these pipes do? I don't know, but they do something. They
seem legit.
Yeah, exactly. You'd have to have giant pipes and steam if there's going to be time travel going on.
Right.
So. But anyway,
That's
I did
great.
actually the time capsule, which I mean, you've seen it, but I don't know if everybody else has seen that. I've been posting stuff on this for a while on my Instagram, but the time capsule itself is based on the Soviet capsule that they launched into space to go to the space station that's out there.
Okay.
This thing is like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's from the 50s. It's got these giant rivets on it. A buddy of mine, Scott, ex-roommate, he works for NASA now. So my band went out there to play a show, and he was like, "Hey, you want to take a tour, like behind the scenes?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely."
Please.
So we got to go into the shuttle, and we're like looking up, and there's like behind glass, there's a tour group who's like looking down, going, "Hey, those jerks, they're like doing all the stuff." he brings us into the shuttle cockpit, and he's like, David, you can't pee in that toilet. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't gonna pee in the toilet. I mean, does it work though? You know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah, it was great. That was great inspiration though for a time machine, because I imagine a time machine would kind of be like some, riveted together, like gnarly, weird kind of,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I have an easier time believing, and maybe it's because Akira was so like foundational to me. Like I saw it and I was
mhm.
like, oh my God, this is what a movie can be. Like I just hadn't experienced anime or manga before that. And then
Yeah,
seeing it, like I watched it, that was one of those like junior high moments for me where I watched it. And then my buddy, he had a tape of it that he had taken from his brother who had checked it out from the library.
yeah,
And like it still had the sticker and everything on, like, please be kind and rewind. Like kids these days
yeah.
don't understand that. But
No,
we watched it on like a Friday night, and then we played some video games, and then we watched it again. And then we played some video games, and then we watched it again. And then his mom
yeah,
came in and was like, guys, it's 6 a.m. Like, you should sleep. I know
yeah,
you haven't slept yet. And we were like, okay. And we put Akira on again. And like,
yeah,
we just watched it like 12 times that weekend
yeah.
just because it was so like so good. And it's so believable to me seeing that, because like time travel isn't gonna be this like eloquent, oh, I just stepped through this ring and suddenly I'm in this, like
No,
it's gonna be this gritty hard work thing to figure out. And
yeah,
seeing how clunky like NASA and space stations and the Soviet stuff and the space like ISS,
mhm,
all the things are like none of them are streamlined. They're all clunky. So
yeah,
to figure out time travel feels like it would be even clunkier because like that didn't work. Add this the whatcha-jigger and then connect it to
yeah.
the whoosy what's it and it'll do the
Exactly.
thing. And it's like, yeah, okay, I believe that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Akira is like just out of the stratosphere. I was
Mhm.
hosting these two kids from Beijing. They were both in high school, brothers. One of them could speak English much better than the other one. And they were supposed to, we were like the host family, so they would have dinner with
Okay.
us, and we would speak to them, and blah 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 blah. And we were talking about anime, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, we gotta go. Our show is about to come out." I was like, "What's your show?" And they were like, "Oh, you wouldn't know what our show is." I was like, maybe try me, man. I'm cooler than I look. I look stupid, but I'm pretty hip." And they were like, it's this show called Gundam Wing. And I was like, that's my jam. I used to watch that when I was a kid. And they were like, what? And I said, how many episodes are there of Gundam Wing? And they were like something like 600 or something. I was like, and I'm 600 years old. So I have been watching this since day one, man. Don't sell me short. They had
That's
never, but the
awesome.
thing what they had never heard of Akira, never once. And I'm like, you're from Beijing. You
Right.
are anime. Like what? Are you? So I was like, all right, guys, I'm all right. I'm taking you down to, because it was showing, they were having a special screening downtown in Austin on the big
Awesome.
screen and everything. And I was like, we're gonna go watch Akira on the big screen. So I brought them both down there, and they got their minds blown. Well, I mean, they were teenagers, so afterwards they were both kind of like, yeah, it was pretty good. And I'm
I
like,
mean, it's
man, you have no idea.
I mean, it was decent, no Gundam suit, but like, okay.
Yeah, 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 100%. I was like, no, every cell was drawn with somebody's hand, and it was
Yeah.
like, what you want? And they were like, yeah, I mean, animation was pretty good. Whoa,
Got it.
almost,
Okay.
almost strangled. They almost didn't make it home in one piece, but it's all good. It's all good.
Right.
Yeah,
That's one of those things. Like if I won the lottery, I wouldn't tell people, but there would be signs. I would buy a movie theater and just play like 80s and 90s anime like
yeah,
all the time. That's all. It
yeah,
would just be for me and my friends, and that's it. And sell tickets, maybe if people wanted to go, but like it would just be marathons of anime, and that's all it would. Because when you
yeah,
find the ones that strike the right chord,
yep,
like game on. And I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
felt the same way with Akira Toriyama with all the Dragon Ball stuff. Like I used to rush home and like run from my bus
yeah,
stop to the house to get home for 3 o'clock when Dragon Ball Z came on, because I wasn't about to miss an episode of the Frieza arc and the Cell arc and like all of those things.
yeah,
And it just like those impacted me and then what I appreciate now in comics and even in manga that I'm reading and rediscovering and all of those things. So with influences, like, you do have a very manga style. Like, did you spend a lot of time reading? Like, did you grow up reading manga, or was that just kind of like an amalgamation of different styles that you had seen?
I I don't know. I actually I think I gravitated towards different stuff at different times of my life. So when I was a teenager, I was all into Travis Charest and Wildcats and Jim Lee and his run on X-Men and all that stuff. I loved it. I was like, how do they get these lines to do these things? I'm lost. I just didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And like thumbing through Wizard magazine, and Bart Sears had a column called Brutes and Babes, and it was just to teach you how to draw like anatomy. My dad was a nurse. Well, he was a paramedic, so he had all these like weird textbooks and stuff. And one of them was this anatomy coloring book, and he gave it to me, and he was like, I don't know, color on it or do whatever you want with it. But
Yeah.
it broke down the human body for me. So like my influences comic wise kind of shifted as I aged. I started with the 90s thing, and I was like also looking at medical textbooks on how to draw the human body, and then from there it was art school, and I got introduced to like holes and all those weird, the weird stuff from the underbelly of comics.
Mm-hmm.
I also discovered, like when I was in college, I discovered on the sixth floor they had just this one section that was like two long ass bookshelves, floor to ceiling, stacked with comic books. And that was it. And I was like,
Awesome.
what? Yeah, they had the Akira volumes, all six of them. They had Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind. They had like all of that stuff. And so I would just spend all my time there just reading Conan the Barbarian, Savage Sword of Conan, and just like digging into weird stuff from the 70s and then into the 80s. And I don't know, like, so my style now, I guess, kind of changes for comic, I guess. But for Big Game Saga, I definitely tried to bring in some of that manga influence and stuff that I had seen over the years, because I mean, it's Japan, man. It's a comic that's set in Japan. You better come with your A game. You better
Right.
Show some deference to the people who came first. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's how I feel about it.
that's cool. Yeah, I loved the I think there was a quote or something from you on one of the social medias. I don't know. They all run together for me at this point because they're all basically the same. But the quote was something about like, do you think a ninja can attack someone with a yard rake?
Oh,
and then reading it, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what that looks like.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, as I was reading it, like, how much research did you do? Or were you already familiar? Like, I know you already mentioned like figuring out the years and the eras for when peacetime was and when wartime was. Like, what does that research process look like for you getting ready to do like art for a book like this?
Well, this book, since it's like a historical fiction, I definitely tried to figure out like, what was going on in this period of time in Japan. Doing the costumes and stuff for the modern part that's in color, it's supposed to be in the near future, so it's basically people are just dressing the same as they are now. Maybe there's going to be a few slight changes in the way the guns are, and their holsters, and like that kind of stuff. Like the tech is slightly more advanced, but nothing crazy. But research wise, I'm kind of a cheater. What I do is I research the thing that I need to know, because otherwise I'll take a deep dive and I'll be listening to a 15-hour long podcast about the Assyrian dynasty fighting the Greeks, and then next thing I know, I'm like, dude, what was I trying to learn? I was just trying to figure out what the helmet looked like. What? So I have to cut myself off and be like, all right, what did the environment look like? What did the people that I'm going to illustrate dress like? And then if that world, that environment broadens more, like say, I don't know what's going to happen in issue 2 or 3 or whatever, but if the Japanese world broadens more, then I'm going to do some more research to figure out what people in different positions of society would look like during that period of time. But I just do that. I just try and do enough research to make it authentic for what it is that I'm trying to portray. It's kind of like world building You only have to build the world that the people see. You don't have to, you know, populate the entire thing, because people will spend ages figuring out what so and so's socks look like inside their sock drawer, and you're like, dude, they're only wearing two at a time. What are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know personally I'll get, and this is when I learn anything. I don't know how to put blinders on to only focus on the one thing. I'm like, oh, so like crafting and making comics. Like, so I need to buy books on how to write comics, and then how to draw comics, and then how like the composition and the history of comics.
yeah.
And then like the biographies of the main people that like the Stan Lees and the Jack Kirbys and Bob Hall. Like, I'm going to listen to all those autobiographies, and then there's documentaries that have been made. So I got to watch the documentaries, because then I'm going to learn something from that too. And then there's like spin off. And then I like 2 weeks later, I'm like, so what do I know now that I didn't know then?
Yeah.
I just get totally lost.
Just
and
like,
I don't
shit,
know.
where's my pencil sharpener?
Right. I'm like, I still have a blank page, and I still have ink in my pen. So I think I'm good to start now.
Yeah. I know. So like before any of this comic book stuff happened, I started writing a novel, well, a novella. Call it a novella. That's a cheap way of saying I can't write a novel because I'm not good enough. It's a novella about Yuriko, and it's like, I don't know, 200-300 pages long. I mean, it's a legit manuscript with no pictures and whatever, chapters and volumes within, all the stuff. And it dovetails in with the story that's happening in the comic book. So the comic book is like a five book like miniseries, and then the book kind of, if you read both, it's going to just kind of deepen your understanding of both of the things, but they're both standalone stories. But I was writing it and I just kind of like dove in, because I knew that if I started questioning whether or not I could write something, I'd be like, there's no way. You know, you watch a documentary on, you know, Virginia Woolf or Flannery O'Connor or something like that, and you're like, these people dedicated their whole lives to this shit. Like, I'm just doing this in the morning before I go to work.
Right.
You know, like,
right.
I'm not good enough, you know. So, but I just kind of banged it out as much as I could. And before I knew it, I had a stack of paper that had words on it. So, you know, again, just doing it and not talking about doing it or thinking about doing it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Just do it. And speaking of just doing it, to turn the page a little bit, so you started your own comic publishing company. What? Yeah.
Theoretically.
as if making comics wasn't enough. Like, how does that work? How do you just like wake up one day like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a publisher. I'm just going to start a publishing company, and I'm just going to do the thing and get an LLC or what. Like, how does that even work?
Well, for me, it was slightly misleading to say I just like woke up and started a publishing company. My wife is she is the smart one, and I'm the guy who fixes the things and makes the stuff, right? She's like amazing research, and she's like the R&D department of everything, right?
Okay.
Yep. So for a while I was with publisher Lesser Known Comics, which is awesome. It's like an indie comics like collective, filled with tons of talented people, and we all bounce ideas off of each other, and it's awesome. It's a great resource, and that has been since I've been part of it or whatever. The only thing it lacked was the ability to get books into stores on shelves, right? So I am a stubborn person, and I'm also like inherently, I don't want to say lazy, but I guess I take the path of least resistance, put it that way.
Got it.
I didn't want to, I've never wanted to do all the submitting stuff, like say, hey, Dark Horse Comics, I've got a cool comic, it's about a vampire, and then be like, no, you know, and then be like, hey, Bandabards, I can draw cool people too, and they'll be like, no, you know. So I figured like, I'm not even gonna try. So she figured out a workaround. She was like, hey, dude, because we used to own a small art gallery in Austin for several years. She's like, we still have the LLC. That's really all they want from the distribution company, from like Diamond and Lunar and Simon and Schuster and all those people. To apply to become to be a publisher that they're going to carry, you have to have an LLC, you have to have your tax ID number, you have to have all this kind of stuff. She's
Yeah.
like, dude, we've already got all that stuff set up, left over from our art gallery. Why not, snowball that into Black Lagoon Books? We could also publish your Yuriko book, and we can make it seem like you're going to publish somebody else at some point in time. And I'm like, I like that. Smart.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it came about. It was really kind of a necessity because I want to put my comics in front of as many people as possible. And Kickstarter is a great way to raise funds at the onset. But then really the next step is to use those funds to print like a buttload of books and then ship them out nationwide and then hope for the best. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's kind of how that came about.
Okay. And so what's the name of it?
It's called Black Lagoon Books.
Okay.
Our art gallery was called Gallery Black Lagoon. And that's weird because the space we took over when we started our art gallery back in 20, whatever, we used to be a movie store, and they had this badass mural that had all these Frankenstein and Frankenstein's wife and Creature from the Black Lagoon and Dracula and Barbarella, just like all the cool iconic like fantasy and horror things were on the side of that building. And the neighborhood was so incredibly upset that the movie store had closed and that we had taken over. They didn't want us to get rid of that mural, so I compromised. I was like, well, the name of our art gallery is Gallery Black Lagoon, and our flagship monster is going to be the creature from the Black Lagoon. So I did this like giant mural of the creature like carrying a woman in a bathing suit across the entire thing. So that's, we already had like the iconography, the imagery, it was all there. It's just needed to basically,
That's awesome. So you've done, it sounds like between being a bartender and doing the restaurant thing and then running an art gallery and now you're doing comics, like what haven't you done? You're in bands. What a transition here. You're doing music and not just like one, you're in multiple bands at the same time. Like, how do you manage anything?
I don't know, man. I have no idea.
Your wife do it?
No, hell no. Well, she'll let me know if I do something dumb. Like, hey, so I'm supposed to go, and she's like, no, you're not, because you're going so and so. I'm like, oh yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
It was a test. It was a test,
I was
babe.
just checking to see if you were paying attention. Of course you were. You passed.
Yep.
Keep you around for a little longer. No. Well, one of the bands I'm in is with her, so
okay.
That's helpful to kind of keep track of what the hell's going
on. Yeah. So is that Born Twins?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we recently inducted our daughter into the band too. She's 15.
Cool.
And it was kind of like we had a tour plan and we were like, hey, do you want to go stay with grandma and grandpa, or do you want to jump in the van and learn how to play the keyboard? And she was like, I'm jumping in the van. And I was like, okay,
of course she was. Yeah.
So that's awesome. That was really fun. We had to sneak her into a bunch of clubs that were 21 and up only. And we're like, don't pass the merch booth. If you go anywhere near that bartender, he's gonna kick your ass out. Look at him. It's real scary. That kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's like juggling all the time.
That's crazy. And so you do drums for that one. You do guitar for yard work.
Yeah.
Like, so what instrument don't you play? Do you do bass for another band and synth for someone else? And
well, so I have another little like side project called Peering Posture. That's all of my songs that have been rejected by both bands, and I play those. And with those, I tape this little drum machine that I have. I got an old an organ from the 60s, 70s. So I tape all these like stupid drum beats, and then I play along on the bass. So I'm just playing the bass line like a fuzzed out bass and singing songs or whatever. With Born Twins, I'm not just playing drums. I'm also singing, and I have a bass synthesizer pedal that I built. I took an old organ like the one I have, and I chopped the bass section out of it, and then I programmed a little Raspberry Pi to make a little sampler that's in there. So I turned it into a MIDI controller. For those of you geeks who play music, you know what that is.
Yeah.
I turned it into a MIDI controller, so it's just a series of switches that I play with my foot, and it's set up like a little keyboard. And then that then triggers the little computer inside there, and I sampled my friend's Hammond B3 because it had the coolest bass tone you've ever heard. So I can, it's cool. It's like 13 notes. It's a full octave from C to C, and I play the bass line while I'm playing drums and singing for that band. So
Nope, there's no way. You're three people in a band, just like you were 7 people making your comic. Like,
yeah,
good grief. So if I need to bootstrap anything for anything at all, I just call you, and then
pretty
you'll
much.
just take care of whatever. Perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
good to know.
like right. So when the gallery closed, when Voldemort got elected, the bottom just dropped out of the whole art community. Like nobody wanted to buy art. No one wanted to have private parties. Basically, everybody was scared and didn't want to have fun anymore. So we were like,
Yeah.
man, what do we do? So we closed our doors, but that was right before the pandemic. So we didn't end up with this crazy overhead, which was great. I mean, so we looked up there.
Yeah.
But after that, I started swinging a hammer. So I was just doing like construction work and handyman stuff. And that was one of those things where I'd walk in and people would be like, yeah, this door hinge is squeaky. Can you fix that? I'm like, yeah, sure. So, fix it. Be like, that'll be $20. And they're like, cool. Well, like, we wanted to rip the back off of our house. Can you do that too? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I can do it. And they're like, okay, cool, man. Here's a pile of money. And I'm like, oh God, how do I rip off the back of the house? So literally, if you needed me to build you a house or, I mean, whatever. Yeah.
That's insane. My brain barely does like one thing, and because my ADHD just won't let me focus on one thing plus another thing. It's like one thing plus 47 different things at 18 different times, and it like all over the place all the time. And like I can't musically. I understand. Like my best friends in high school were all playing guitar because everybody loved a guitar player.
Yep.
So they were always playing guitar. And I was like, yeah, I don't have the coordination to do that. I understand like strings and the composition of music and some of the music theory and all, like I get it. I just don't have the coordination in me to do the thing. So I was just the guy that had the leather jacket with patches and even bigger faux hawk and, the Hot Topic pants and stuff that were super huge. I was that guy. And then they were all the like Aeropostale shirts with the bird and the khakis that matched and the boat shoes and the flip hair. And I was just like, man, how do we fit together?
This isn't working out. I look like you should, and you look like we. Like, what's happening?
Right. Yeah. How are you the guys that are the cool guys that are playing guitars and making music and you look like that? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But
it's funny when I joined yard work, I tried out for them. They couldn't find a guitarist, and I was like, "How do you not find a guitarist in Austin? Like, you throw a rock and you're gonna hit Stevie Ray Vaughan. Like, everybody plays guitar really well. It's not stupid." So anyway, I tried out for them, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, you can play in the band, blah 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 blah." But during practice session, I mean, we're in this tiny ass sweaty room. It's hot. There's a window unit. It's just disgusting with 4 dudes in there, and the amps are turned up, and everything's just it's just awful. Right, so I'm just kind of standing there. I'm trying not to move because it's so hot, But we learn all the songs and stuff. And then the first show we play, like the first song we played, I jumped off the stage and started running into the crowd, started a mosh pit, like freaking the fuck out, like almost broke my neck from headbanging. And afterwards, they were like, "I didn't think you were going to go crazy like that. I haven't seen you act like that at practice." I'm like, "Ew, in that box? No, I don't want to run into you. You're all sweaty and gross." Like, nah. But they had, it's one of those things where I don't look like the kind of guy who's going to end up shirtless on a pool table, but I will.
You're that guy. You're the
guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of just communities and like the being in bands and musicians and all of the things and being very different, but also very similar. So I've noticed since starting the show, and I've only been doing the show since the Ides of March, so the 15th of March this year.
Oh, wow.
And it's insane. Like, it's insane. I've been doing some sort of broadcasting. It's what my degree is in. I've been in the industry for 15 years doing like internet radio shows and stuff like that. And this is the first time that I've actually had like a video-based podcast, even though I used to do video shoots and podcast work. Like I never combined the two together. And so this is just like taking off, which only tells me like this is the right thing that I should like. Everything the past 15 years has led me to this show. But
Yeah.
the more that I talk to indie creators, the more that I hear like, yeah, man, you just like, it's not like a us versus them thing. And it's even in like other podcasts that I'm watching or listening to or whatever, like reading blogs and newsletters. It's like, you know, I want everybody else around me to succeed, because when one boat rises, like the water rises for everybody.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so all of this preamble to get to, so I backed Incision from Jay Red. And I really hope his name is actually just Jared and he was just clever and split it.
He is. He's a
okay,
very clever
perfect.
guy.
Because I just keep like accidentally calling him Jared. But Jay sent out the rewards and he includes a ton of stuff in his backer rewards. And I did an unboxing video, whatever, it doesn't matter. But he included this Nerida postcard. And then this guy right here is super spooky. And I was like, wait a second. I'm talking to what? And I just like
talking to that person.
It literally stopped me in my tracks because I was like, wait a second. I hear about the indie comics community and being supportive. And I've talked to several other people from lesser known comics, several other people that have started their own publishing company, and they all kind of mention other names. And I'm always like, yeah, I totally know who that is. And I have no idea. But hearing it, I'm like, okay. And so when I hear the name again, especially Nerida, like that's kind of a unique name, you know? And so it like, I was unboxing these rewards and I was like, wait a second. I'm sitting, oh my God, this is the community. And I just thought it was like, I just thought it was really cool to see in action physically in my hands, the talk of like communities within the indie comic scene. And so I just want like, can you talk towards that? Like what's been your experience making comics and working with other creators and having been the person that does all the things, even down to the person that just does like one of the things? Like what's your experience been like?
Man, it's been nothing but positive. It's really cool. I mean, down to like over the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, when I started doing this kind of legitimately, and I was thinking to myself, I really want to do like comic cons. I've never done comic con. I went to them and I saw some comics and was like, that's cool. Like I should do this, you know, whatever. But I needed to have a comic to sell. Right. So I busily created the comic that I wanted to sell. And then through lesser known comics, the hive mind was bouncing around different comic cons. And we were like, hey, what's in Central Texas? Who else lives close by? I came across, I became friends with a couple of people in Austin. Dan Price, who does a comic called Bigfoot Knows Karate.
Yes. Yeah. Danomite. Yeah.
Danomite. Yeah. And Ray Garza, who does Tank McGregor, which is awesome. I mean, the guy's already put out 2 like crazy omnibus full on, like, I don't know how he produces this much work. Maybe he's been working on it for years and it's just now that he's printing it, but it seems like he's just cranking out pages, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But he and I, you know, like I got a table in Comic Palooza in Houston last year, and I was like, hey man, this is kind of steep. I can't afford this table fee. I don't know if I'll make my money back. Do you want to split the cost and come out there with me and we can both be at the same table? And he's like, hell yeah, that sounds great. And he reciprocated, did the same thing when we went to like we were in, where were we, in Waco, Texas. We ain't coming out. Yeah. So anyway, but it's great, like talking with these people about their experiences. Or for example, on Twitter, there was a guy, I forget his name, but he's always saying stuff. He's a very opinionated young man. And he was talking about getting books printed. And I said, hey, out of curiosity, who are you getting your stuff printed by? And he told me about Comics Impressions or Comic Impressions. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'd never heard of them before. And so I asked some of my other buddies through LKC. I was like, hey, have you guys heard about this? And one of them was like, yeah, that's who Scout Comics uses to print all their stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, so they must be legit. Ordered some comics from them. Dude, these comics look so good. They look super pro. I mean,
that's awesome.
They're what I've wanted my comics to look like since day one. Yeah. I'm like, you're my printer from now on. So prices don't go through the roof, and you don't, I don't know, some jerk or something. But
Right.
yeah, so just having that community base and just asking people like, hey, will you do this? Will you do that? Or swapping postcards and bookmarks and things to throw into people's Kickstarters, because that's kind of like a big deal for us, is the Kickstarter thing.
Yeah.
It's the only way that we can reach new fans, since our books aren't really on shelves. Um, it's the only way we can really reach fans. And if we're willing to, without flooding the market and seeming like spammy or whatever, but willing to share each other's backers with each other, like say, hey, oh, you like my stuff? Well, check out so and so. It's pretty awesome. It's huge for us, because then you can theoretically, double your crowd or reach new people, and it's so word of mouth that it feels very organic, and I don't feel icky about it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not paying some like scam bot, Fiverr promoter, whatever BS thing to like inflate my numbers, and then those people are just robots, so they don't actually read my comic book anyway. It's just,
right.
So yeah.
That's cool. I as somebody that I've earned the elusive super backer logo, whatever, on Kickstarter, which basically means that I spend a ton of money on Kickstarter. Don't tell my wife. I froze dead in my tracks, and she's gonna see this, but we were driving and we were talking about how, money sucks when you don't have it and it's tight and whatever. And she was like, you keep getting Kickstarter things. Like, how much are you spending on Kickstarter? And I was just like, oh God, I've been trying not to answer this question for like 4 years.
Yeah.
I was like, well, a lot of the ones that I'm backing now, like the digital copy is like $5-10, and the single issue is like maybe 20. So that, is a baseline. And I'm just like not mentioning the ones that are way more than
yeah. You're like, with this one, I wanted to get all the variant covers. And I wanted to get the like signed copy with the poster.
I'm a completist. So like where I end up shooting myself in the foot is like the series Sync, about like, it's a horror comic about like, serial killers and monsters and vampires and stuff. Like, that's all. I love horror comics. And like, I got into it so late that by the time I was doing, they were on their 5th issue of like their 2nd side story. And I was like, I don't know who any of these people are, but this is too cool not to get. So like, give me the physical catch-up tier.
yeah.
And, so like, I haven't gotten it yet, but it's going to come in like a huge FedEx, not just like a Gemini, like it's going to come in a huge box of just comics that are going to explode everywhere, as if I need more comics exploding all over.
You should get them shipped to your neighbor's house next time. Your wife
That's smart.
Package. Yeah.
Have them delivered to my work office, and then just, hey, there's a box coming for me. Just set that on my desk.
Yeah. I'm too dumb to make that work. Like, anytime I try and order something, like try and get a present for my wife or something. And she comes in, she's like, I just got a notification through email that you ordered something on something for something. And I'm like, no, what? How dare you?
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
I'm the one that has all that, because there were a couple books that before I learned like the Australian tier is just buy digital because post sucks. And I signed up for like the whatever USPS postal tracker or whatever. So now I get notifications every single morning of an email of like, here's what's coming in the mail today. You have 97 packages. Do you want them delivered? And I'm like, yeah, just deliver them. Just
drop them off.
Yeah.
Just drop them off.
Yep. Just take a whole truck and just back it into the driveway, dump truck it and just take off. I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. But so I'm the same way, where like when it comes to around my birthday or anniversary and then Christmas, it's like, I just don't even look at them. I see it and I just delete it, because I know, like with my brain, I'm going to see it and be like, oh, she ordered me something from Etsy. I wonder what she ordered me from Etsy. And then I'll go looking at my wish list. Like, what do I even have? I haven't even opened Etsy in 6 years. Like, what? Yeah. So it's dangerous to know, but then sometimes it's good to know.
Yeah.
But,
I just can't get anything by her, which is great. Because, it's good to not be able to get anything past your wife. Like,
It
she's
is.
smarter than me. She just
Yeah.
is. I don't
Yeah.
know.
So one of the things, speaking of getting to know things, what is your art process like? Do you do digital? Are you like an old ink and paper? Are you a mix? Like, what's the process look like for you?
I was doing ink and paper for a long time, and then I sprung for an iPad, and I kind of never looked back.
Mm,
Uh, so I come from like a printmaking background, like I
yeah.
said before. So for me, trying to illustrate digitally, I want it to look like ink on paper. I want it to look like a print. I want it to have that like real textural quality to it. So
Yeah.
I really strive to make that happen. Um, but yeah, for me, the process is all done in in the smallest little iPad. It's like itty bitty,
Yeah.
and I'm just constantly like, like
Yeah.
trying to, because I'm dumb. I mean, if I was balling in the mix, and who knows, in a couple of years maybe I will be. But if I was like really like swanging and banging, I would get one of those crazy Wacom huge illustration tablets, and I'd be at my
Yeah.
desk and I'd be like, "Yeah, check it out! I got this huge drawing." But for now, it's just a goofy little iPad that I draw on.
Yeah.
But it does the job. I mean,
It does.
and it's portable. I mean, half I did this book called Dusk Witch with a writer based out of Australia, and half of that book was illustrated either on an airplane or in the back of a van on tour headed towards a gig. So, like it's
I'm
awesome to be
sorry.
able to just
That's the coolest damn sentence that has been said on this show yet. Like, you were making comics in the back of a van on the way to a gig with your band. Like, dude, we're done. That's it. I can't.
right
What?
on. Yeah, I
How is
mean
that your life?
it's pretty cool. I'm excited about. I mean, like I said, my AC's broken, hence like why I'm glistening so much because I don't have the funds to fix it. But
Yeah.
outside of that, it's pretty awesome. I mean, well, my wife and I have basically like worked really hard to get ourselves to a place where we can do the things we want to do. So she teaches yoga and she plays music. I play music and I draw ninjas. And those are the things that we want to do. And we've
Yeah.
figured out a way to be able to do those and make a living at it. Um, I do also draw some things that I don't necessarily want to draw. Um, and I try to avoid it, but sometimes it's like, yo, they're gonna pay me. I need money, and
Yeah.
you know, you should see my shoes. My shoes are. I have a pair of Vans that I've had for 5 years, 6 years, 8 years. I don't know how long I've had them, but man, they got rips all over them in the toes, and
Yep.
my bandmates are conspiring. They're like, dude, you can't wear those to the next show. Like, I'm gonna buy you some shoes. I'm like, you're not buying me shoes, man. I can buy my own shoes. I'm a grown ass man. And they're like,
Right.
sure you are.
Right.
We're just gonna buy you some checkerboard Vans. And what size do you wear? I'm like, I'm not telling you. I mean,
Yeah. There's only so much additional mileage you can get by slapping more black gaff tape on shoes before you just like, it's too far. Like I step in a puddle and my whole foot's wet. This has to go.
Yeah, slathering them in like JB Weld to like stick them back together,
Yep.
or like epoxying them back together because they're like talking to you on stage. You're like, sorry,
Yep.
guys.
Yep. Been there. I hate buying new shoes. I'm like, once I find a good pair of shoes, I will wear it until like everybody I know has been like, yo, you've got those are rough. Like, they're rough. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I guess it's time.
Man, yeah, I got a pair of Red Wing boots that I was wearing when I was doing carpentry, and they're great. I mean, they're designed to be work boots. That's what they are. Man, I tore the hell out of them, and I glued them back together several times, and I got them resoled like twice. Last time I took them back to the Red Wing place, they were like, "We can't fix these. This is like, buy a new pair of shoes." I'm like,
right.
No, but you could just. What if we just glue like a piece of leather onto the top of it? And they're like, "No, man, stop.
Stop.
Just go.
Let it rest. Let it rest." That's awesome. So, all right. So I want to, that's officially the end of my notes. But what I like to do is just like give you an open forum here. So anything I want to know anything that you've got on your mind that you want people to know about comics, about you, about your music, about whatever. This is like, I'm not going to censor any of it. Like, it's just, obviously we're already streaming live, but like whatever you want to say, like nothing is off bounds. And I try and give every creator that, because they don't always have a spot that they feel like, even with social media, it can kind of feel gross where it's like, hey, here's the thing that matters to me. And people are like, shut up, monkey, like just make more art. And so like here, the whole point is to hear what you have to say. So anything that you want to tell people, here is the floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, people, let me tell you. Where are you? There you are. There's the camera. Yeah, no, I mean, I would like people to enjoy the comics that I read. I would like people to enjoy the music that I make. And that's about it. Like I don't know, man. I'm so excited about being able to just make comics and make music all the time that I yeah, I don't if you wanna listen to my band, any of my bands, one of them is called Yardwork. It's like a rah punk rock punch you in the face kind of band. It's very fun.
Yep.
That's my guitar shenanigans. I wrote a handful of the songs too that are up on our Spotify. If you want to listen to my band with my wife and my daughter, it's called Born Twins. Not to be mistaken with the band Porn Twins.
Oh, no.
That's our side project. Sans the daughter. I'm just joking. We have talked about it. But yeah, Born Twins is my band with my wife, and I write songs and play drums and sing and do all kinds of weird stuff in there. But I also do like the artwork and all of that stuff. Yeah, I've got some comics coming down the pipeline that I think you're going to be real stoked about if people are listening are big comic book fans or indie comic fans. One of them in particular is called Something Beyond the Petrichor. It's written by a guy named Dakota Brown, who's written some stuff for Band of Bards, for Scout Comics, for blah, blah, blah. This one is coming out on Red 5 Comics. And it's slated to be a 4-issue run up to begin with. It's just like a straight up out of left field from what I've done so far. It doesn't look anything like all of my other illustrations. And I'm really excited about it. So keep your eyes open for that. The other one that I want you to look out for is one that I've been working on with my daughter for a few years now. That one is called Yuki the Dragon Slayer, and it's about a like preteen interdimensional dragon slayer who she comes to our dimension and she proceeds to destroy the middle school where this dragon is chasing her. We got issue 1 all scripted and halfway drawn, and that one is going to be pretty bonkers. Totally different art style again. I haven't landed on the art style completely yet because every time I send a page to my daughter, she's like, "That's awful," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Let me try it again." And I'll draw something else and I'll send it to her, and she'll be like, "Yeah, it's cool."
Hey.
So I mean, like, eventually I'll figure out what it is that she wants, although no one can know what a 15-year-old girl really wants.
No.
And that one's coming. We're already supposed to be in an anthology that we're submitting to at the end of July. That's a bunch of local Austin artists. So we have a deadline. But yeah, those are the 2 books coming down the pipeline, along with Narita and Yuriko, and of course, Big Game Saga. If you want some awesome ninja action, go check out Big Game Saga so that we can make more of those comics, because I love drawing ninjas, and I don't know why I haven't been drawing ninjas in all my other comic books too. Maybe I'll add some. Anyway.
Just sneak it. They're already there. You just can't see them because they're ninjas.
Yeah.
Like that's yeah.
Exactly.
So for someone that is excited about the things that all the things, where do they find you and keep up with your online social media hijinks? Where do they find you?
I'm pretty active on Instagram. So my Instagram is at David Luján Art, or David Luján Art. It's just my name with art at the end of it. And that I kind of like, I'll post stuff from my comic book page, which is Narita Comic. and I'll post stuff from my different band pages. Yeah, so if you want to keep up with me and see what's going on with me and all the weird shenanigans, I also post like weird stuff. Like I built a tree house in my backyard for my daughter to live in. So when I was
That's
building
awesome.
that, yeah, it's pretty cool. I can't wait for her to move out so I can move in. It's gonna be awesome. But like as I'm doing weird stuff like that, or like dismantling an old Mercedes Benz in my driveway, I'll post things about that too if you're interested. If anybody's, I don't know why people would be, but yeah,
There's
I do
gearheads
lots of
out there.
yeah, I do lots of weird stuff. Like I don't know. I post a lot of bike porn too.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I have a bicycle and I love it. So I post a lot of pictures of it, especially when I do upgrades. My upgrades are real crappy. I mean, like I found this in the dumpster. Check it out. And I'll hook it up. That kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
fun.
Awesome. Well, man, David, I appreciate it. I feel like we could do one of these on everything that you have done, and every single one would be wildly different. And you are by far the most interesting man that I think I've talked to in recent memory. So,
Right on.
thank you for sharing, like just what your life is and your process and all this stuff with us. And that's going to be it. So if you find yourself coming to the Midwest with the band, please hit me up and I'll buy you some Cincinnati style chili.
Yeah.
And we can have a 3-way together and it'll be awesome. So maybe afterwards get crazy and play some cornhole with each other, whatever, like all Midwestern things that we do. So
I've never been to Cincinnati. So
if that doesn't entice you, I don't know what will, my friend.
Right on, right on.
So, but no, I appreciate you coming on, sharing everything with you. I wish nothing but the best for Big Game Saga. I hope everybody that hears any bit of this interview immediately jumps on Kickstarter and backs it, because it's a super fun book. I really enjoyed reading it, and I hope to read more from that very soon. So, that's going to be it for this interview. David, thanks for hanging out. Again, you can find him, David Luján Arts, on Instagram. And I'm going to find you right now because I think I only follow your comics page, which is one of the most creative Instagram profiles I think I've ever seen. You have to take it in as a profile instead of individual pictures. And that's, again, it's a unique thing that no one's doing. And it definitely makes people kind of step back and be like, wait a second, what? That's the 4th red picture in a row that I've seen. What is happening? And then you go to your profile like, oh my God, that's so cool.
That's cool. Yeah. Sometimes I'll post, like if I do a grid post, and some things there's not a lot of imagery happening, and it's just like this big swath of nothing. Like, what even is this? I was like, check the profile. Now you want to see what it is. And they're like, oh, that's cool.
Yep.
It's like,
that's the old one too.
Yeah. It's a little piece of the puzzle,
That's right. But yeah, thanks for coming on. And I hang out after we end this and for just the logistical stuff. And then, but that's it. So as any good podcast has a tagline, I have one too. So that's going to be it for this interview, punks. Do what's good for you and go read some indie comics. Until next time, this has been the Long Box Punk. We'll talk to you later.